Next up to talk all about structuring investments for emerging tech, we've got the Director of R&D at New York University in Abu Dhabi. Please put your hands together for our next keynote from Hoda A. Khzaimi. See? Would you like to use one of these ones?
It's okay, I have
You're already done?
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to say thank you so much for the introduction. And thank you so much for the great energy.
But you didn't say my name.
Uh-oh.
You've forgotten it already, haven't you? You don't care. There you go. Just
Great job. Okay, so thank you so much for choosing this talk over lunch or over dessert. And I hope it's worth it. I don't know how many of you made it to WOW last weekend, a couple of weekends ago. I think I talked about this conversation, which is investments in the metaverse on emerging technologies as well. And I've been asked to re-narrate the conversation again. I have to stay away from our amazing host because we don't need to hear the echo of the room. Yeah. So, I mean, for so many years, we have been bombarded with a specific narrative of jobs. And because of what you see around this conference today, yesterday we talked about digital economies and the gig economy, and today we're talking about the economy of the metaverse. And because of this, we're looking at a different future of jobs than what was set in stone in the past. So if I asked you, and this is a question that I keep on asking in my conferences, what's the volume of data that you are producing on a daily basis? Would you know what's that amount? Give me a wild guess. Many bytes, exactly. It's around 2.5 quintillion bytes, which if you want to quantify this amount, it maps to over 500 million tweets around the universe. So that's 500 million of tweets that you are pushing out and putting out there. Can you imagine what is the nature of economic power that you can create as an individual if you could monetize every aspect of a presence that you have on a virtual space? We are living in a future that is working toward an economy of individual rather than an economy of a centralized authority or a centralized investor. And because of this, there is a huge push for the fact that you as an individual could create currency, could create money value, and could create at the same time new levels of investments with your data that you put out there in virtual platforms. It's not coming in like a full fold as we have seen it in the past. It's coming gradually in the form that we are trying to do our best to monetize this digital presence. And metaverses is one of these communities that are being built across the world, or technologies that are aiming to do that. Before the metaverse, we had this kind of a crushing presence in the emerging technology platforms of creating a virtual parallel to human beings. And this is what we called in the past maybe digital twins. I don't know how many of you in the room heard before about digital twins. We have one person, two winners. Yes, we owe you a gift from the organizers. Exactly. So when it comes to digital twins, you're trying to create a virtual parallel to different platforms that exist on a physical space. And the reason behind this is because you want to seek control over, accessing these digital assets, even if it's in a remote sense or in a remote platform, and utilize proper working environment. Of course, this has its own importance in the era of COVID or in the era of remote working, where people want to access critical assets on nuclear plants, for example, or electrical utilities, even if they are somewhere else in the universe, somewhere else around the world. It has its importances, it has its jests, but it cannot be pushed beyond a specific narrative. And today we are treading toward a higher level of necessity where we know collectively that for that amount of data that I've described, we have only half of the universe that's being connected on digital platforms and not the rest of the universe. So only 4.4 billion of the people are connected actually, and 4.4 people are amounting to this creation of volume of data that could be eventually utilized to create economic benefits and wealth and structures. So if we looked beyond data factories and beyond data trading environments and marketplaces and monetizing data, we could find that we eventually reaching this kind of parallel universe where we are demystifying data and demystifying the use of data. I don't know how many of you heard about the global genome decoding project? Yeah, I see two of you, thank you so much. So the universe have made the universe, or we collectively around the world, or research group around the world, have made a great leaps in decoding the human genome. And that's thanks to the amount of data that has been shared on open platforms, and thanks to the collective efforts of what we can call crowd research or crowd work together on different digital platforms to achieve that. So what would happen if we brought into the mix the power of emerging technology and the power of what we call today metaverse, or beyond the current universe? What if we could create a parallel universe of everything around us in life where we could virtually monetize every aspect of it? And this is why gamers, for example, I don't know how many gamers do we have in the room? Oh, thank goodness, yes. Gamers are more than 80% of this conference audience. So gamers, we should be very thankful to them because they managed to monetize more than 80% of the virtual assets that exist within a gaming platform, and they as well managed to break the narrative where some central authority within the gaming industry will be responsible of evaluating these assets. And the new play-to-earn structure of gaming industry, which utilizes most of the metaverse structures, most of the players are being the creators of the digital assets, and also the people who would decide on the value of their own digital assets. And they would push it forward through different measures, of course, of structures. But before going to that, I wanted to realize the level of, I would say, capitalization that exists when we're talking about the investments in emerging technology. So before, in 2016, it was around 350 million, and now it maps over 3.2 trillion dollars when it comes to this level of investment in emerging technology, and maybe even more than that. The reason why I'm saying more than that is because we're dealing with highly volatile assets, that the valuation structure of these assets is not clear. We don't use the same normal valuation methods that exist in the past on evaluating other assets. This is why it gets harder to know the level of investments that goes around them. And this is a study that McKinsey & Co. also published earlier in 2020, and they wanted to talk about what are the new trends that would shift the landscape of technology. And they talked massively about the fact that we are talking about edge computing. And I know many of you heard in the past about cloud computing, where we're pushing everything to the cloud and to the central authority of the cloud. But because of the power of the people and the power of the users and the power of the citizens, we're pushing everything, not only payment gateways, not only technology that we are building, we're pushing all of the level of this power construct in a digital structure to the hands of the user. And this is why we're having as well a huge push to edge computing, where maybe the mobiles that you are holding at the moment will be in the power of the new supercomputers, or HPC, like the high-performance computing platforms. But we don't know when we'll be pushing around that curve, because we need to also have the power of cloud computing and the power of other structures that should exist on the map. That being said, we're still working on the cusp of disruption technology, and this disruption technology requires the muscles of different and diverse type of technologies that come together to create new economies and to create as well a new job structures than what we are accustomed to. And this is why we're talking today about the fact that we have over 40% of this reskilling structure that's happening to let people, not only, I don't want to say let employees, because it's not about employees anymore, and it's not about investors or teenagers or children or senior citizens, the world actually joining into this new capital structure that is being created on a digital platform. So when we're talking about the metaverse, we're talking more than about a concept that surpasses immersive reality and virtual reality and tokenization of assets, creating digital twins or monetization of digital assets. It's actually beyond this current narrative of digital power that we are creating. And it's not a new concept. It's something that started in the late 80s and took this kind of avalanche effect because of, I would say, the return of investment of the industry. It's highly within the technology industry that has over 10x of return of investment on certain assets. We've seen as well over 60x return of investment in other assets. And for the metaverse, there is this level of acceleration that is happening that people who created it initially did not anticipate it. And I don't know how many of you have read I asked this in another conference in WOW 2 weeks ago, and I tried to know how many read Snow Crash, which is, oh, we have two Snow Crashers, more than what we had in the other conference. So Snow Crash was the novel that has been written by Neil Stephenson, and he talked about the metaverse, the first structure of mentioning actually the metaverse in it. And then from that kind of sci-fi structures of creating realities on paper, we're having people today creating these virtual realities that goes beyond the current narrative today. And it's a two-edged sword because you're pushing people to be existing on this digital platform in a structure and in personality that might not be representative to their actual physical structure, but it might have a higher value than their actual physical structure. So we are supposed to look at the other way and say, maybe security doesn't matter here, maybe privacy doesn't matter over here, because again, we're pushing anonymized characters to be part of this universe as well. So I don't know how many of you invest in NFTs or trade in NFTs in the room or create their own NFTs. We have one. Who creates more NFTs here? Oh, 2, 3, yes. And who would create NFT in the collectible structures, I would say, or art? We have one in the art. And who would correct them within a gaming industry? Amazing. It's good to see. I think we all should talk together and on how are you creating that, which is very important. And I could see different age groups. It looks like a different flavors of people coming from different parts of industries. So now when we're talking about the metaverse, the highest level of capitalization we're seeing mostly relates to real estate, for example, or to the NFTs. And when we are trying to evaluate the assets that are built around the NFTs in 2020 and 2022, they're marked between $40 billion to $94 billion of global growth. And you could see how it's taking the world by storm at the moment of this kind of a growth that's being built across the universe. And we see also that there is this kind of trajectory push where you're not only contributing to the core industry of NFTs, for example, or the metaverse, but you're also pushing other entities and other side industries to be recreated. So I cannot wait to see how can we use these NFTs on utility structures like energy creation, for example, or energy distribution around the world, and not just in the video gaming industry. So when we looked at the utilization of NFTs, we looked at the gaming structure, using them within the metaverse in a general sense, on the art and the utility and collectibles. Today, there is a huge focus into using these NFTs within the utility structure. And if you ask why, because utility relates to infrastructure of what we're using as a human being today. It's in energy, it's in transport, it's in most of our daily activities. And if we could use that kind of high capitalization of structure, of return of investments into this utility structure, we could also give new industries huge support of what we're building in the future. Again, this new industry is riding on the wave of innovation. I don't know how many of you looked in the past waves of innovation, and how many waves of innovation do you think we have up till today? 4. This is why we're talking about the 4th or 5th industrial revolution for most people, but it's actually more than 6 on paper. And most of these waves of innovation, they have a specific characteristic. I don't know if I have another slides, but I don't have it in here. But most of the characteristics about the waves of innovation is that before, and sometimes way after the wave of innovation would happen, you would have a massive crisis, either economic crisis or health crisis or destruction of something, and this would push new innovation structures to be recreated. And this is what we have today. I think it's the silver lining of everything that's happening around us for the past few years, and it's also a prediction of something positive that's going to be created around the globe. So again, it's also a very interesting new DNA of technology that we are building. We're not just building a unified one structure of technology. Like if you looked at the 50s were more about semiconductor industry and how we can build a proper semiconductor industry to take us to the moon or to take us to create a new nuclear structures eventually and new other aspects. But today, it's actually the merge of over 50 different merging technologies, concepts together to go over and solve this kind of humanitarian purpose, global issues that goes beyond just creating new economies and new sources of revenue for people around the world. So if you talked about the maturity of the metaverse today, you have to talk about the maturity of AR, VR, cloud computing, quantum computing, crypto, how we do create real, authentic crypto, authentic security, robotics and AI. We have to talk about precision medicine. You have to talk about 3D printing. It's not just about this level of structure. So again, it's a type of industry that would build this healthy growth in other industries. And also it has these 7 sectors of the metaverse that we keep on talking about. And maybe because of these 7 structures of the metaverse where we care about discovery, experience, creator economy, spatial consumption, and also decentralization among other human interfaces and infrastructure, then we tend to build more alternate growth in different platforms. And this will lead me to the next slide where we will end up having over 90 companies. And at the moment, if you looked at the concrete number of platforms that exist on the metaverse and algorithmic transformations of the metaverse, there are over 200 platforms actually on this structure. But you would ask, why would we have over 200 platforms for a technology that has been built in the past 2 years? It's actually more than just cultivation of technology for elements of technology that has existed in the past 2 years. It's a progressive growth of effort that happened in the past. And if you looked at the names of some of the companies around here, sorry, let me go back. Some of the companies around here, you could see the likes of Facebook, the likes of Google, and the likes of Meta at the moment, not Facebook, joining the race in order to take a stake at recreating the industry and redefining the policies of industry. And I think there are few wise moments that we have to really be aware of. The metaverse is this kind of universal revolution of the users of technology, where they are saying, we would like to control the way we create virtual assets, the way we monetize our data, the way we build the new payment systems or the new currencies, and the way we build jobs. So it's a way of breaking the economies of the world and building new economies of the world based on the tendencies of based on the user tendencies of the different stakeholders in these digital platforms. So again, when we're talking about valuation, it's not easy. As you see over here, this is one of the research data that refers to NFT kind of valuation to be over 25% of what the cryptocurrencies are actually representing. And when you look at the networks actually that NFT is based on, they're all most of the time based on blockchain and these cryptocurrencies networks, which are Ethereum and other networks, for example. And we will still see this kind of dynamically growing, I would say, forecast of the valuations of NFTs, because the more we try to know about them, the more we try to integrate different assets on the map. So some research on Yahoo Finance saying it's the current valuation of 194 billion investments, but it also grows over more than this. So the economy is something that struggles to solve this issue, struggles to solve the issues of the humanities around the world. I'm sure kids who are involved, and not only kids, but people who are involved in the metaverse industry are actually trying to drive purpose around the world and solve this kind of world problem that creates gaps between users and citizens. Just yesterday when I delivered the digital economy conference, I've met a mom who traveled all the way here from the UK, and she has like a great investment in real estate, but she would like to start her digital platform to support girls in Africa, or to support building different labor structures for women around the world. And you could see us trying collectively to build a different policy structure and a different ecosystem of impact when it comes to the metaverse. And this would be a global call for all of you when you are trying to build a new technology or use a new technology, because you're not anymore the users, you're the developers of impact, is to try to search for great purpose and impact that would create, with the money, some kind of a human value around the universe. Thank you so much for your time. These are my details. If you need to connect on a later structure, I have to rush for a different meeting. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.